The psychology of the ignored child is a complex and often overlooked aspect of human development, one that can shape personality, emotional resilience, and interpersonal relationships for decades to come. Imagine a child sitting alone in a crowded playground, their eyes scanning the laughter and chatter around them, hoping for someone, anyone, to notice. But no one does. No parent, no teacher, no peer. Understanding the nuanced effects of neglect, not the blatant abuse that garners headlines, but the quiet, insidious overlooking of a child's emotional needs, is critical for parents, educators, and mental health professionals alike. In this exploration, we will delve into the origins of emotional neglect, its manifestations, the long-term psychological consequences, and importantly, strategies for healing and intervention. Children are inherently social beings. From the moment they are born, they rely on attention, affirmation, and engagement from caregivers to develop a sense of security and self-worth. When these foundational interactions are missing or inconsistent, a child begins to internalize the experience. Emotional neglect does not always manifest as outright cruelty. It often appears in subtle forms: a parent too preoccupied with work to respond to a child's excitement, a caregiver who dismisses feelings with "you are fines" or "don't be silly," or teachers who overlook a child's struggles in a busy classroom. This lack of recognition communicates a powerful, albeit unspoken message. You are not important enough to be noticed. Over time, repeated experiences of this kind can cause the child to question their own value, creating patterns of self-doubt and insecurity that may persist into adulthood. The psychological impact of being ignored during childhood is profound. Research in developmental psychology indicates that neglected children frequently struggle with emotional regulation, often oscillating between intense neediness and withdrawn detachment. They may become hypervigilant, constantly scanning their environment for signs of attention, or conversely, they may retreat inward, learning that their expressions of need are futile. This dynamic is closely tied to attachment theory, first articulated by John Bowlby, which posits that early interactions with caregivers form internal models of relationships. A child who is chronically ignored may develop an insecure attachment style, characterized by fear of rejection, difficulty trusting others, and challenges forming healthy relationships. As they grow, these children may exhibit perfectionistic tendencies, desperate to earn recognition that was denied in early years, or they may adopt avoidance strategies, minimizing their own needs to protect themselves from repeated disappointment. Beyond emotional patterns, being ignored can influence cognitive development. Children thrive on feedback and interaction. These exchanges help them develop language, problem-solving skills, and executive functioning. Without consistent engagement, a child may struggle academically, not necessarily due to innate ability, but because the cognitive scaffolding that attention provides is missing. For example, a child whose curiosity is consistently overlooked may become hesitant to ask questions, stifling their natural inquisitiveness. Similarly, a lack of validation can affect motivation. Children who are ignored may internalize failure as inevitable or view effort as pointless when it goes unnoticed. The interplay of cognitive and emotional neglect thus creates a cycle that can be difficult to break without targeted support. Socially, ignored children often face unique challenges. Peer relationships are critical in shaping self-esteem, empathy, and social skills. When a child has learned that their presence or contributions are inconsequential, they may struggle to navigate friendships or interpret social cues accurately. Some may overcompensate by seeking attention through negative behaviors, while others withdraw, fearing rejection or ridicule. This social alienation reinforces their feelings of invisibility, creating a feedback loop that deepens isolation. Furthermore, studies have shown that early experiences of being ignored can heighten sensitivity to social rejection in adulthood, influencing everything from romantic relationships to workplace dynamics. Adults who were ignored as children often report heightened anxiety around acceptance, a pervasive fear of abandonment, or difficulties asserting themselves in group settings. It is important to recognize that the effects of being ignored are not universal. Personality, temperament, and context all play significant roles. Some children display remarkable resilience, finding alternative sources of validation or developing internal coping mechanisms. Others may face compounded challenges if emotional neglect coexists with other forms of adversity, such as poverty, family instability, or exposure to trauma. Mental health professionals categorize these outcomes along a spectrum, from mild difficulties in self-esteem and social functioning to more severe manifestations, including chronic depression, anxiety disorders, and personality disturbances. Understanding these nuances is crucial, as the narrative of the ignored child is not deterministic. Intervention, support, and recognition can significantly alter developmental trajectories. Parents and caregivers play a pivotal role in mitigating the impact of neglect, even when it has already occurred. The first step is awareness. Many caregivers do not realize that emotional neglect can be as damaging as more overt forms of abuse. Simple, consistent acts of attention, actively listening, acknowledging feelings, offering praise and encouragement, can create a corrective emotional experience for a child. Additionally, structured routines, shared activities, and quality time foster a sense of predictability and security, helping children internalize the message that they matter. In cases where neglect has been persistent, therapy can be transformative. Child-focused interventions, including cognitive behavioral approaches, play therapy, and attachment-based therapies, provide safe spaces for children to explore and process feelings of invisibility. These therapeutic relationships can serve as models for healthy interaction, gradually reshaping internal beliefs about self-worth. Schools and educational environments also have a critical role to play. Teachers and staff are often in a position to recognize and respond to children who may be overlooked at home. Implementing practices such as individualized attention, active engagement, and social-emotional learning curricula can help bridge gaps created by neglect. Furthermore, training educators to identify subtle signs of emotional neglect, withdrawal, heightened aggression, perfectionism, or chronic daydreaming, allows for earlier intervention, which is often key to preventing long-term consequences. Peer mentorship programs, group activities, and collaborative learning environments also provide avenues for children to feel seen and valued, reinforcing the social and emotional skills that neglect may have impaired. Understanding the psychology of the ignored child requires attention to long-term consequences as well. Adults who experienced neglect in childhood often struggle with self-esteem, trust, and intimacy. Many report feeling invisible in their professional or personal lives, repeating patterns established in childhood. Yet adult resilience is possible. Recognizing these patterns, seeking therapy, building supportive relationships, and engaging in self-compassion practices are powerful tools for reversing the impact of early neglect. Neuroscience research indicates that the brain retains plasticity throughout life, meaning that corrective experiences, whether through therapy, mentorship, or nurturing relationships, can rewire neural pathways associated with attachment, self-concept, and emotional regulation. This insight offers hope. While being ignored as a child leaves its mark, it does not determine one's ultimate trajectory. Culturally, the concept of the ignored child manifests differently, depending on societal norms and expectations. In collectivist cultures, where group harmony is prioritized over individual expression, children may be subtly ignored when their needs conflict with group goals. In highly competitive societies, children may be emotionally overlooked if they do not meet performance standards. Recognizing these contextual factors is essential for designing interventions that respect cultural values while addressing emotional needs. It also challenges the notion that neglect is only a private, familial issue. It underscores the societal responsibility to create environments where every child feels recognized and valued. Preventive strategies are equally critical. Promoting parental education about the psychological needs of children, integrating social-emotional learning into school curricula, and fostering community support networks can significantly reduce instances of emotional neglect. Policies that encourage parental leave, reduce caregiver stress, and provide accessible mental health resources indirectly support children by ensuring adults have the capacity to engage meaningfully. Community programs, mentorship initiatives, and youth organizations also create safe spaces for children to be acknowledged, validated, and encouraged, counteracting neglectful patterns before they become entrenched. Ultimately, the psychology of the ignored child is a call to action. It challenges us to look beyond overt abuse and recognize the subtle, often invisible ways children suffer. It urges caregivers, educators, policymakers, and society at large to prioritize attention, recognition, and emotional attunement. By understanding the origins, manifestations, and consequences of being ignored, we can develop interventions that not only heal past wounds, but also foster resilience, self-worth, and connection. Every child deserves to be seen, heard, and valued. The cost of neglect, both human and societal, is too great to ignore. The journey from invisibility to recognition is not simple, nor is it quick, but it is profoundly possible. Children who once felt unseen can learn to trust, to assert themselves, and to embrace their worth. Adults who endured neglect in childhood can, through reflection, therapy, and supportive relationships, rewrite the narratives that shaped them. By examining the psychology of the ignored child, we illuminate both the fragility and the resilience of the human spirit, reminding us that the simplest acts of attention, truly seeing a child, can ripple outward to create a lifetime of impact. In doing so, we honor the inherent dignity of every child, ensuring that no one has to grow up feeling invisible again. This exploration underscores an urgent truth. To ignore a child is not merely to overlook a moment, it is to shape a lifetime. Conversely, to acknowledge, support, and engage with a child in meaningful ways is to plant seeds of confidence, empathy, and emotional intelligence that can flourish for decades. By committing to awareness, intervention, and genuine connection, we can change the trajectory for countless children, transforming a legacy of neglect into one of empowerment, resilience, and hope. The overlooked child is not a lost cause. They are a silent reminder of the human need to be seen. Our responsibility as parents, teachers, caregivers, and community members is to ensure that no child's voice goes unheard, that no child's presence is disregarded. In attending to the psychology of the ignored child, we are not only nurturing individual lives, but strengthening the very fabric of our society, creating a world in which every child knows with certainty that they matter.